Okay, so I think we should get started. So Precious will hand over to you and then we can get started.
Thank you. Welcome everyone, to all the participants that joined us. Welcome, good afternoon. Most of us are working from home, as you can see our backgrounds, but we tried to look as decent as possible without wearing our PJs. But welcome. This is our first series of webinar sessions that we are going to be doing in commemoration of our International Women's Day, which is obviously starting next week, but we have dedicated the entire month of March to us celebrating women in farming. So we are doing this series in conjunction with Accelerate Afrique, Solidaridad, and today we're joined by two dynamic women who are going to be sharing their stories on how, farming has worked for them, how they're doing farming, and some of the success stories and challenges, and how to be a farmer. As you can see, today's session is titled The She Farms, which is going to be really exciting, and we're looking forward to hearing from Bali and Lindy, who are going to be introducing themselves shortly. But on the Solidaridad side of things, for those who are not aware of who we are a civil society organization that has over 50 years of experience in developing solutions to make communities more resilient. We started, as you can hear the name Solidaridad, we started, our early roots started in Latin America. And now we are working, our current work looks at fostering more sustainable supply chains over 40 countries and 5 continents, and we have like 8 regional offices around the world. I'll stop there and I'll hand over to my colleague Nonto to introduce herself as well, and then to the speakers to introduce themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Precious. And once again, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Nonto Gotomasuru. You can call me Nonto. I am the convener of Accelerate Afrique, and essentially Accelerate Afrique is a global community for African women in leadership. And so we are excited about today. We're excited about this webinar because we believe that agriculture is the now and the future for Africa. So looking forward to the discussion. And I'm sure as we chat, as we discuss, we will get to know each other a little bit more. So thank you so much for joining us. So we'll hand over to, we'll ask Lindiwe to introduce herself briefly, and then Bali will do so as well.
Thank you, Nonto. Hello, everyone, and welcome to She Farms. We're extremely excited about this webinar. Well, I am, and I hope you are too, as we'll be talking in depth about our experiences. For me personally, I am what I'd like to term as a serial entrepreneur, because I do dabble in quite a few industries. Primarily on this edition, we'll be discussing the farming that I'm into. I am currently doing organic farming and specializing in tomatoes and lettuce, and also other horticultural products that I do produce, but not organically. So as we progress, I will be speaking a little more on that. Generally, I grew up on a farm and have been exposed to farming for all of my life, and have only just recently started to, recently decided to take it to the next level, as I've been, mining into manufacturing, and now actively choosing to farm.
Thank you very much for that, Lindy. Thank you so much. We'll ask Mbali to go ahead and introduce herself.
Okay.
Thank you, Nonto. Good afternoon to all the ladies and maybe men joining this webinar. I don't know if there's any gentlemen, but good afternoon to you all. My name is Mbali Nwoko, and I am a farmer throughout. I also am a columnist for Farmers Weekly. I have a podcast which is called the Mbali Nwako podcast, where we discuss everything to do with agriculture and farming. And I also blog on a monthly basis, and but everything that I do centered around farming and agriculture. And I am the founder and CEO of Green Terrace. We are a hydroponic farm based in Babsfontein, that's the east of Johannesburg. And we are producing undercover and predominantly vegetable crops, and we supply to wholesalers, retailers, as well as fresh produce markets across South Africa. So it's lovely to join you on this on this webinar, and yeah, I'm looking forward to conversations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ladies. So I think now we'll just go ahead and start our discussion for the day. And I'm sure many of us who are on this webinar today are either wanting to start our businesses, farming businesses, or we are already in business and we want to to scale up. So today, really, we're talking about how we can evaluate the farming ventures that we want to go into and how we can actually scale up our businesses. So we'll get Lindy and Bali to share insights. And for everybody who's listening in and who's watching, please use the chat box to just tell us where you are, where you're coming from. We would really love to know where everybody's coming from. And as we have our discussion throughout the afternoon, if you have any questions, please just put them on the chat box, and then we will have a Q&A session towards the end. We'll try and make as much time as possible for the Q&A session, and we'll try and get Mbali and Lindy to answer as many questions as possible. So please tell us where you're coming from, and please go ahead and start presenting in your questions so that we'll be able to line them up for our facilitators to answer. So now we'll hand over to Precious, and then she can take it on with Mbali. You're on mute, Precious.
Okay, there we go. Bali, thank you so much. Really, I'm so excited for you to be joining us, because we always talk about young people in farming. And one of the challenges that we are faced today, especially in Africa in general, we have a wealth of young people that shy away from farming. And here you are, a dynamic young woman who has made it in just less than a decade, basically. And I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you and to really getting a sense of where you started, like what was the key thing? I mean, obviously you started off running a recruitment consultancy, but branched off into farming. And so it would be great for us to for you to share, like, why and how did that happen? I mean, from a professional career to farming, which is also equally exciting. So over to you, Mbali. Please share with us how you started.
You're mute, Mbali.
Apologies, I'll remember that next time. So I started Green Terrace in 2016. And like you alluded, Precious, I did have a recruitment company that I ran successfully with a co-partner for about 4 years. And fortunately, I think that was like a stepping stone to my agricultural world, because in my recruitment lifetime, I dealt with a lot of technical roles, like engineers and artisans. At any given point in time, I'd sit in boardrooms with head of engineering departments, mining divisions, and the likes. And I started my recruitment company at 25, and already within my late 20s, I was immersed into a very male-dominated industry, and I did quite well, I believe, for myself in my 20s. And how I moved into farming was, as business people, we constantly network, meet other entrepreneurs, meet other business people. And fortunately enough, back in 2016, I had met an individual by the name of Eric, who was an engineer, and he had just left, you know, his engineering career and started off to do farming. And his intention was to start with piggery farming or piggery production. However, he was growing vegetable crops and selling to the nearby spas that are franchise owned in his community. And when we're sitting next to each other, you know, we introduced each other like, hi, who are you? What's your business about, etc. And he told me it was farming. And throughout the year, the minute he said that, I was like, it's so funny. Why am I meeting so many people who want to farm this year or who are farmers, you know? Maybe the universe is saying something to me. And as Eric narrated a story and told me about his strategies, plans, and what he's farming and who he's selling to, I thought, geez, how difficult could it be to sell cabbage, you know? And when I look at my business then in recruitment, I thought, oh, there's so many things about recruitment that could put you off. Clients could send a job spec, you know, could advertise vacancies. They would say they want a candidate as soon as possible. And once you present candidates and candidates are at an interview stage, the clients will just freeze that position or put the position on hold or just cancel it. And that is quite frustrating because as well as a recruiter, or a talent acquisition specialist, whichever term you prefer, you giving hope to individuals who are seeking better careers for themselves and obviously to improve not only their personal lives, but their family lives, you know? And so I was just thinking, recruitment sometimes is just a bit discouraging. And I thought, when I compared recruitment to cabbages, I thought, well, you know, it's a no-brainer. I think it's better, it's much easier to grow something and sell it to the retail and make your money at the end of the day. And so after my conversation with Eric, I remember literally just going home and just immersing myself online with any information I could find around agriculture and farming in South Africa, understanding who are the stakeholders, the role players, how the value chain works. And fortunately, like I said, I think recruitment was a big stepping stone for me into agricultural space because I was already used to research, digging deep about companies, organization, how they founded, understanding the different dynamics that go into a multiple sectors. And so I did my research, and about 2 weeks in, I incorporated Green Terrace. My first farm was a farm that I was renting. So I literally drove around, started looking for land that I could rent. And mind you, when I met Eric and he told me he was a farmer, I thought you had to be a multi-millionaire, you know, to be a farmer because land is expensive, equipment, tractors.
I think Bali is on mute.
Looks like she froze.
Yeah.
You name it, is expensive.
Oh, okay. I think we've lost Mbali there for a little bit.
Yes, we definitely.
Okay.
Oh, there she is.
You might have to return.
Bali, we lost you. We lost you for a bit.
Is on mute.
You're on mute, Mbali.
Apologies to everybody there. So yeah, I think I'm not sure where I cut off, but what I was saying is that I started driving around different farming communities, and specifically I went to the East Rand and in Mapleton, and that's where I found a farm, and negotiated with my landlord to see how many hectares I could start off with. But to cut the long story short, I started with 2 hectares with 2 employees, and my first crop that I planted on the ground was spinach. And so that's how my journey essentially began within the agricultural sector.
Wow. Mbali, I don't know if you can hear me, everyone. Yes, so Mbali, that is really exceptional. And I know you are the eldest. I kind of read on your profile, you're the eldest of 3 children, and this must be really such a great example also for your siblings and for your entire family. In general, did you come from a background of farming, or it was your friend that you mentioned that actually inspired you more to be in this sector? And how has your family changed also with you taking a career in agriculture, and also maybe your peers as well? How do they see you as a farmer? Because, you know, when you look at a farmer, some of the young people we engage with, when you talk about a farmer, they expect old 62-year-old, and if you are 62 years old and above, no offense, but the general picture that we have in Africa of a farmer is not a 30-something-year-old or younger, or maybe even 25 years old. You know, we think of a farmer of somebody who is above 60, or they're in their retirement age and all of that. But you being a young person in this sector, how has that influenced your peers and your family, maybe your friends, etc.? I think that would be great to hear.
Yeah. I think the question around how it's influenced my peers, I'm still not sure. I think you'll have to ask my friends there as well as my family. But you're right. I'm the first of three. I come from a middle-class family, and my family has been supportive. I mean, I know when I left my corporate job, the first thing my mother said is that you're leaving a comfortable salary with medical aid and pension and provident fund to start your own business. And I said, yes, because if I could do this for somebody else, surely I can do it for myself. And I remember within the first 2 weeks, I made my own placement just working for my parents' dining room, you know. And it's so funny what COVID has taught us, because I remember back then when you were a recruitment agency starting up, you know, everybody wanted you to have the most fanciest office, the flashiest, the furnitures, etc. But who knew that a couple of years down the line, everybody will actually be working home. And that's another thing that my co-founder thought we might not succeed, to say, oh, we're starting to work from home. Who's going to take our brand seriously? And, you know, even with friends, they were like, geez, how can you leave such comfortable salaries and start your own business, you know? And I think people were just not understanding. They thought we're crazy. I mean, in your 20s, you want to live large, live life, travel, etc. But fortunately, I took that step and started my own business, and you know, that dream really came to fruition. So with regards to support from family and friends, they were definitely there, although some of them didn't understand in the first place. When I went into agriculture, that was also a different step. So I am a first-generation farmer. Nobody in my family has ever farmed. I think the close.
I can't hear Mbali. Can anyone hear Mbali?
Yes, we can hear her.
Yes, we can hear her.
Perfect.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, we can hear you, Mbali.
Yeah, we can hear you, Mbali.
Okay, perfect. So can I continue?
Yes.
Nonto?
Yes, please.
So yeah, I was saying that I'm a first-generation farmer, and nobody else in my family was farming before. And so when I took that leap into the agricultural landscape, it was quite tricky, because I had to rely on strangers, on farmers that I just met in the nearby community. I had to rely on the internet to also get some information on how I can, you know, scale up my business. And so, yeah, I think just looking back now and how far I've come, I think the impact or the influence that I've had on my friends is that they see me as an example of a person that just went forward and did something, you know, pursued their dreams, and just went for it and just started, you know. That's what I know for sure, because they keep telling me that. However, you know, just being in business is just very difficult. You have to go through so many business life cycles, economic climates, and you still have to survive at the end of the day. And fortunately enough, I have a group of individuals, whether it's family or friends, that have been supportive at any given point in time, whether it was my recruitment years or in my agricultural years. But yeah, I think support is key in growing a business, and that's just how my family and friends have received me, I suppose, with my farming journey.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Umbali. I think we've lost her a little bit, but I'm sure she'll come back. I love how you have, taken the challenge. How you've taken the challenge and you're actually a first, generation farmer. That's really incredible. And I think maybe we'll cross over to Lindy. Lindy's not a first generation farmer. She actually grew up in a farm, she grew up in a farm, so she knows the ropes, she knows what farming is all about. Maybe tell us a little bit about your experience as a child farmer, Lindy.
Okay, basically, I think my experience, just to give you a brief background, from about grade 1 to about grade 7, my father was a businessman is a businessman in Zimbabwe, and we always had a farm. Regardless of whatever was happening or what business he was doing, we always had a farm. So from a very early age, I've always been playing around cattle. I've always been playing around the farm. I've always been very curious. I mean, I think when you're exposed to animals as a child, every child loves animals. And every child is adventurous if you're given the opportunity. And I'm one of those who didn't want to wear shoes. I wanted to run out in the field. I wanted to taste things. I was always eating things from the field. Got into trouble a few times for that, mind you. But in general, it's an atmosphere that you genuinely love. And then as I grew older, my father made the decision when I think I was about 12 that, look, we are now going to move from town to live on a farm. And that decision didn't go down too well with everybody. I think including myself, because up until that time, I was living in between town and farms, and I thought, okay, this is the kind of life I like. If I want to go, for the peace and quiet, you have that available. If I, want to have the city life, I have that available. And now he was talking about full-time on a farm. And the farm he was talking about, when we did go and see it, was just open, bare field. There was absolutely nothing on this farm. The gentleman that had owned it was a third-generation farmer and had not developed the farm. He was actually breeding snakes on it. So that alone, when I first went to see the farm, was a big thing for me. But years later, I'm proud to say that we developed the farm, built a really lovely structure on that, other structures as well. We went into cattle ranching. Previously, my father had always been in dairy. Initially, when the farm started out, it was dairy cattle that we were doing, and then we moved into ranching when the economics of them changed, because it was difficult to get the different vaccines in for the dairy cattle. So it was easier for us to initiate and start the ranching. So I've mostly grown up around cattle, and this is my favorite thing when it comes to farming. Now, I have, however, branched out to horticulture, which was actively being done at the farm as well. So I had exposure to that as well, because we're doing mixed farming. But really, the cattle were where my heart was, but I was exposed to both from an early age. So it's been an exciting journey, definitely a lot to learn on a farm, a lot to do. My father's extremely hands-on, so in turn, we are also very hands-on in terms of understanding what is required for you to be able to run a farm. I think the main thing for anyone who wants to farm is to understand that farming is about discipline. If you are not disciplined in terms of the times that you have to spray, and this is from a horticultural perspective, if you're not diligent about your spray times, if you're not diligent about ensuring that your animals are vaccinated at the right time, or dipped, or be whatever it is, that is the function of whatever you're growing, you will definitely fail. I don't think a lot of people fail in farming because they don't particularly know what they're doing. I think the failure comes in the consistency. And that's a big lesson for me, and also watching my father over time, and then also experiencing it and doing it for myself. although when I grew up later, I decided to branch into so many other things. Like I introduced myself initially and said, I'm a bit of a serial entrepreneur. That's because I have great interest in different fields, but farming is very close to my heart, and so is mining. I have carved a niche out for myself in the mining world, and I then looked and said to myself, you know, this is what I grew up on, and farming is a great way to make money. I mean, if you look at all the different you know, if you read up on millionaires or people that have been extremely successful, it's not generally from only one income stream, but from several income streams. And I think drawing from that, I've sort of chosen the three main ones that I feel are lucrative for myself, and also, I mean, just generally from an economic standpoint, in terms of farming, manufacturing, and mining. So with the farming, I'm currently starting out an organic project. So that is where I am. And this is pretty much, I think, pushed forward by the fact that I've grown up around this. So the fear element wasn't really there in terms of stepping out of, you know, my usual spectrum, but it was something that I was passionate about from day one and something that I genuinely love to do. Sorry, can everyone hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you, Lindy. Excellent.
Thank you for that.
Sorry, I thought I'd lost you guys.
Thank you for
Yeah,
that,
we-
Lindy. Much appreciated. And so maybe we'll hand over to Precious, and then we can go back to Mbali. We can't hear you.
I apologize for this. We just speak automatically without doing the mute, the new norm. All right, Bali, thank you. And Lindy, I mean, your experiences are so amazing, considering you're both young farmers. This is just really exciting for us. Bali, I actually meant to ask you before Lindy came on board. Unfortunately, I lost connection. Like, so your typical day, what does it look like as a farmer? Like, just take us through, like when you wake up in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, what does a day look like as a farmer?
Wow. Sure. I think it's drastically changed. My typical day back 2016, 17, and 18 was literally I had to wake up, drive to the farm, make sure that we have enough orders for the day. Even before I left the house, I think, okay, let me take it back. So back in 2016, 17, and 18, my typical day looked like, for example, I would start receiving calls and SMSs from 6 a.m. from my informal market clientele. And so they would order every day. In Bali, I want 200 bunches of spinach, then the other one 300. So at any given day in the morning, I'm already, by the time I leave the house, I've probably gone through a list of about 2,000 bunches for the informal market that I have to supply. And that was spinach, to be precise. And then I'd head on to the farm. If there's any other material or packaging material that was short, I'd obviously pop into the market, the fresh produce markets, grab that, go into the farm, inform the guys that we're harvesting this amount of quantities. And then obviously by the time I get there, they would have started farming or harvesting and just laying the foundation for what we need to do in that day. And then during the day, then I'll speak to more of the formalized clients and also host some buyers onto the farm because they like to come and spot check the product and just see if everything's running okay. And yeah, I think just manage the whole harvesting process. And after harvesting, we'd have to ensure that our fertilizing program and our spraying program is right and intact. And then from there, you know, I'd organize the logistics. The logistics company would come, deliver our crops, send out invoices, send out delivery notes, and would have our product sent through to our clients. And then I'd come back home, and by then I was still a wife and a mother to a young little boy. I think he was about a couple of months back then, and in 2016. And then yeah, so I just come home, just double check in terms of what we did for the day, confirm deliveries if they arrived, etc. And just be a mom, I suppose, and a wife, just cook and speak to my husband. Every single day when I got home, he always wanted to know how my day was. So it was always about me, and he didn't want to talk about his corporate life. So yeah, I think after working hours, I'd just be a typical mom. And just, I think, summing up my tasks for the day, did I achieve what I wanted to achieve? And as the years progressed, and that's when I started writing for Farmers Weekly, etc. Now, what my day looks like now. So unfortunately, I lost my husband in 2018, quite short due to cancer. So now what my day looks like now, especially now that I've just built a new farm and we actually just started our first harvest today. So for like 2 years, I've been building this hydroponic farm, and it was the worst, having to build it through COVID-19, the global pandemic. And so what my day looks like now is far more relaxed. If I can tell you, I built my farm with efficiency and technology in place. So what my day looks like now, if I could tell you, this morning, I dropped off my son at school. I went to the farm and met a client there because today is our first harvest. So they just wanted to double check if we are going to deliver the expected tons. And they also came to drop off some crates that they want our product to be in. So yeah, I just had a client visit, and then from there, I spoke to this new tech company that's going to handle our farm management system. And yeah, and now I'm here on this webinar. But if this webinar wasn't around, what my typical day would look like is still pretty much 100% being hands on deck in my farming operations. But fortunately, with how I've built the farm and having invested quite heavily in technology, I can literally, even speaking to you right now, have real live access to what's happening on my farm. I can have access right now in terms of how much my team at the farm is harvesting. We have real life access to the fertigation system on my farm, check the EC and the pH and the level of my water, check the humidity of my plants in my greenhouse tunnels. And I think this is just what you call a modern day farmer, or just the advantages of what technology brings into agriculture. So what's different about the Mbali today versus Mbali 2016, 2017 is that now I don't have to be heavily invested into the farm and directly working in the business. Now I can look at my operations holistically with an overview and start making business decisions that obviously could grow my enterprise, because there's so many ideas and aspirations that or goals that I'm working towards for Green Terrace. So on a daily basis, it's just being hands on deck with my farm. Other than that, communicating back and forth with my sound engineer for all the podcast episodes that we need to roll out for the month. I am thinking about the next Farmers Weekly articles that I'm going to be publishing. Right now, I'm updating my website because there's a whole new set of blogs that I'm going to be publishing, and putting out a really more informed and digital newsletter, more like a magazine for aspirant farmers or farmers who want to grow and scale their businesses. I'm currently working on an app. So I think this group is the first group outside my developers and the stakeholders that I'm working with that knows about this. So I'm currently working on an agricultural app. I think we will launch in about 2 months, safe to say. And yeah, that's pretty much how my days look like. And I'm so excited for the things that are awaiting for Green Terrace, and not just the work that I'm putting out there for agriculture. And I hope we can just make an impact and a difference to people's lives. And can I just say, Precious, before I round off, is that the whole reason why I took into writing, I never thought I'd be a writer, I never thought I'd be a podcaster, but the whole reason why I took into this is because there's so many people now that are reaching out to me and saying, I want a farm, or I'm a farmer, I just started, where do I go, what do I do, etc., etc. And I think it's important for individuals like myself, for individuals like Ulindi, to really give back, because when I started, like I said, I'm a first generation farmer. I had any agricultural background or expertise. When I started, I didn't see my mentors, your Vitos, your Julians, posting and blogging. They weren't doing that. They weren't giving us the information that we wanted to know and hear around in farming. So my podcasts and my blogs and my columns are all serve as a way to really educate as many people as possible, because simply put, I'm still a farmer at the end of the day. Farming is quite intensive. I don't have the capacity on a personal level to mentor individuals one-on-one. So if I can share information online, people read the blogs, the articles, people can listen to the podcast. I think that's, for me, it's part of doing my bit to serve the agricultural community, because this is how passionate I am about the sector as a whole. Yeah.
Wow, Mbali, I mean, your story is so amazing. In fact, you have already discussed quite a lot around how you were able to plan your processes in the farming ventures, and how you do your day. And wow, it is so amazing. We're getting so many questions already, wanting to know more about what you do, but we're hoping people can reach out to you after this. Hopefully you can also share your details if you are keen for people to reach out to you. And what about you, Lindy? Maybe since today we are discussing the evaluation and planning processes on how to get started in a farming venture, how did you evaluate what branch of agriculture you wanted to go into, and what steps did you take before starting operations? Over to you, Lindy.
Okay, as I said earlier, I think my initial motivation is obviously this is what I grew up in. But over and above that was the fact that I had been reading some articles and sort of looking for a way to diversify investment. And it came to my attention that, look, by 2050, the world population will basically double. And really, the richest people that will be on this earth will be farmers, because the supply of food will be in great demand. And of course, Africa being one of the continents with the most arable land is at the forefront of that. And I think my focus to go with organic farming was specifically because when I looked into the fact that, Zimbabwe has always had a ban on GMO, but I think I'm not sure if in recent years it's been loosened, but I think it's still in place. But the thing is, natural food, I think, is a big thing to look into, because not only do we as farmers earn slightly more on our produce when your produce is organic, and also the fact that the Western world is moving towards eco-certifying all the products. And this then in turn gives you an opportunity to earn more from your produce. So when I looked into that, my immediate response was, look, I am going to enter this, and I wanted to enter with a product that I'll be able to also add value to. That's my decision to do tomatoes. The lettuce were a by the way, because obviously I can't really concentrate on just the one produce all throughout the season. So I started looking and reading up on organics. I mean, organic farming is not as difficult as everyone makes it out to be, because quite frankly, that was the starting of farming for all Black people. That has always been our basis. And as much as I may have grown up on a farm, there are a lot of other people out there who have always had some sort of link to their rural home, or a link to your farm, or a link to subsistence farming in some way. And I think it's so important that we all need to grasp that and take it to the next level, So for me, what I did was, when I then armed myself with information on, what were the sort of organic pesticides that farmers were using, looking at manure and the composting processes, all this I was just reading and gleaning off different websites, as well as interacting obviously with my father and other community farmers that I've grown up with. As you mentioned earlier, most farmers are elderly. So in the community that I grew up in, there is a lot of elderly people that are farming, but they're fantastic in that there's so much information, they're a wealth of information in terms of what you can get from them. So I'm not sure if I've answered your question fully, or you wanted me to go into how I actually started the project itself.
No, but absolutely, that's great, Lindy. And I can see an overflow of so many questions, but we have to move on now. I think natural food is definitely the way to go. And as you correctly say, everyone makes it as, it's difficult to do natural processing, natural food production. But it's really great to hear from you, the practitioner on the ground. I mean, sharing that it's actually not as hard as people make it out to be. And I think if we had more time, we would actually venture into that, into the agroecology processing and how women are leading in this aspect. As you say, it has always been a traditional way of farming for a lot of Black people. And we hear that within the agricultural space, agroecology is being discussed in so many different spheres as the way to go. But for us, it's like, well, we've always been doing this generations before. So it's not really new for us. So it's really interesting to see that you are leading in this space. And it should be great to actually see. If we had time, we could have maybe seen some of your pictures, perhaps, of how you're doing this. But I'm going to hand over to Nonto. Nonto, over to you if you have any more questions.
Thank you so much, Precious. I think, and ladies, Bali and Lindy, thank you so much. I mean, I'm taking down notes and trying to, I know there's a recording, but, writing down sometimes helps it to stick. And, Bali spoke about technology, which is just brilliant, which is like the future, of agriculture. And, when we're talking about scaling, how do you scale your business? I think technology is key. And so for those of us who want to know a little bit more about technology, one of the webinars that are coming up this month is, we will be discussing technology and things along the lines. So I'm sure we're going to hear a little bit more about that. If we do have some time before the end of the webinar, then maybe we'll go back and talk about what hydroponics is all about. But for now, I want to evaluation and planning. So from what you have said, what I've picked up is, you need to know the area you're at, the soil and things like that. Maybe let's talk just for a few more minutes, talk about what, break it down. How do you evaluate, where, which branch of agriculture or what you need to go into? Can I just start and decide, okay, I want to be a chicken farmer, or I just want to grow cabbages and tomatoes? So maybe let's talk a little bit more on that. So Lindy and Bali, maybe you can kind of share some pointers with regards to that.
Sorry, just to add to Nonto's question, and maybe you can also talk to us about as a startup, how do you get, I know Bali, you did mention about land, how you access land, but what about capital, and what are some of the challenges that you face in terms of accessing all of that? Because I know a lot of us, or a lot of the participants here want to know, how did you breach all of those challenges and to get to where you are today?
Awesome. Okay. Well, I think firstly, how you evaluate. So if you're an individual wanting to go into the agricultural sector, you need to first identify which commodity you want to cultivate or grow, raise chickens, livestock, field crops, horticulture crops, citrus, etc. Firstly, identify what you want to do. Have that in mind and then work backwards. So when I say work backwards, so let's say I want to start vegetable farming, and you want to firstly maybe produce cabbages. Then what you then need to do is find out, firstly, is there a market for cabbages? Maybe go into the Johannesburg Fresh Produce Market or any fresh produce market, because I see there's individuals here on the group who are based in UK, in Zimbabwe, some people from Uganda, etc. So maybe if there's fresh produce markets in your areas or in your countries, and that have access to records, maybe 3 to 5 years past trading records, to give you an average price of how much a cabbage head weighs and how much it is per kilogram, then I think that will be the first starting point, to understand what are the market prices and how have they been, and understand what influences the market price season after season, year after year, specifically to do with cabbage. And then from there on, once you've identified that, then you move on to the market, right? So it's maybe just starting to interact with individuals, clients, retailers, wholesalers, processing companies, feeding schemes, funeral parlors even, because they're buying fresh produce from farmers. Find out, hey, I want to start growing cabbages. How many cabbages do you buy a day, and how much from whom? Who are your suppliers? What is their disadvantages? What is their advantages? What keeps you buying from them? What stops you from buying from them? Just do your research based on their clientele. Then you go back and you sit down on the drawing board and say, okay, I want to farm cabbages. The average prices of market for cabbages is X. These are the clients that buy cabbages. So maybe cabbage is in demand from, I don't know, September till December. And then from January till March, maybe there's a dip. And then maybe during winter time, the demand goes higher. So you have to make that analysis. And then what you then do is that go seek land. So if you have the capital to start buying your land, you could do that. If you have inherited land, maybe you could also look at farming in that space. If you want to rent land, that's also an option. But, you know, just for minimizing risks and selectively utilizing resources, I would always advise individuals to start off renting land, but having a good contract and negotiating very well with the landowner and having a contract in place that is signed by both individuals. But if you've got a farm, a plot, land that is yours, then obviously you could start there. And then doing the cost analysis to say what goes into production of a cabbage in a hectare. What's the minimum hectares that I need to plant or cultivate for me to start with cabbages? And maybe Lindy can speak on livestock as well, because I'm not a livestock farmer, you know, just in terms of the monitoring and evaluation. So you find out what's the minimum hectares that I need to plant to make a profit. And then if you found that the minimum hectares is 2 hectares, you need to find out how many tons is that going to give me at the end of the day. And then compare that with what your clients have said. So if you know that 2 hectares, for example, can give me, let's say 10 tons, hypothetically speaking, and the markets or the clients that you've spoken to say they need 30 tons, then you know that you're well within that region to supply them. And it's always best to under-deliver and over-deliver instead of under-deliver, you know. So you work with that. You start farming your 2 tons, even if you have your 2 hectares, even if you have found a farm that has 10 hectares, I always say to individuals, start with 1 or 2. Start with what makes economic sense, because it all goes back to capital. So then you find the land, then you irrigate it, you check the borehole, electricity, and so forth, and then you do your due diligence on that land and you start planting. You look for chemical suppliers, seed suppliers that could help you along the way. You do your soil and water analysis. These are all the things that go into evaluation. And essentially, this is a farm business plan. And as you're cultivating, as the months go by, those individuals that you spoke to a few months back and said, I want to plant cabbages, who's supplying to you, etc., invite them in your farm. Take them through the process. Even if hail and frost has hit on your cabbages and you have to start again, invite them so that they can see that they can see your determination, they can see that you are in it, and that in future when they plan and they forecast to say in December we need cabbage sales, but oh, here's Mbali, she's planted in, you know, in June, so in December we could be expecting produce from her. Automatically you have a client. And so that's how you do your M&E when it comes to farming. And from a capital perspective, I started with 50,000 Rand. 50,000 Rand, 2 employees. Fortunately enough, when I was winding down my previous business, you know, we sold a lot of the assets. We had fantastic furnitures that we could still get good Rand value out of them from selling secondhand. And there's a lot of clients also that were just paying out as I was slowly digressing from recruitment into agriculture. And so I saved up that capital just to pay for my personal expenses. I closed whatever credit cards I had, accounts I had, just to make sure that from a personal level, I don't have too many overheads that could sink the business. So I started with 50,000 Rand. About 20,000 Rand of that went to fertilizers and seeds. And then I employed individuals, and I was paying the two ladies about 2,000 Rand a month, but they weren't coming to the farm every day. I think they were coming like 3 times a week. And so what I did is I took that 50,000 Rand and I broke it down to say salaries, operational costs, etc. And then I tried to stretch that 50,000 Rand for as long as possible up until I made my first sale of spinach. And it worked. You know, it really worked. And the capital that I had from my selling of furniture and all that stuff could at least pay my own personal monthly expenses. So I think if you want to go into any form of business, and most importantly, farming, because like Lindy said, it takes time, you need patience, you need perseverance. You have to have patient capital. And I will be 100% upfront with everybody here that don't look at yourself. If there's any Black females out there and seeing on the news that, oh, the Department of Agriculture wants to sponsor and support Black female farmers or Black woman farmers or Black woman farmers under the age of 35 or 45 or whatever the case might be, your employment equity status does not guarantee your ability to get funding. Nobody wants to give out money, and especially within agriculture, because a lot of investors and private equity firms view agriculture as a very risky business, which is true. And they know as well that it takes time to realize a return on investment. And they know as well that they don't have the experts in agriculture, you know, the expertise in agriculture. So they'd rather send their money into a tech business, into some other businesses. But just know that in agriculture, save as much capital as you possibly can. If you've got personal expenses, bring that down so that you don't have to put on financial pressure onto the business. And know that besides farming, I think it's important to know that when you're in business as an entrepreneur, you're literally on your own. Make use of your friends and families to help you. So even if you have to borrow 10,000 Rand from this person and say, I'll pay you back in 2 weeks, go for it. That's just how it is, because when you are an entrepreneur, as everybody knows, they say it's a lonely journey. It is, because trying to raise money, particularly in South Africa, irrespective of what you may read on, you know, online or on the news or newspaper articles, that we're always looking for women to invest or to fund. The story is very, very different in the other end. So yeah, that's my 2 cents worth of wisdom.
Thank you so much for that, Mbali. And that's an amazing story. Somebody might be thinking, okay, I don't have the 50,000 Rand, but Lindy, you shared something with me, or, you know, or during the week, and my jaw was like, wow, you know, how you turned this project that you did, green vegetables, from $150 to a couple of thousands. Maybe when we're talking about capital, Lindy, maybe go ahead and share that with us as well.
Okay. Well, when I first started out on the farming, on the venture, I also went the green leaf route, just like Bali was saying, that it really works. And I think a lot of people take it for granted. So I have a son who is 15 years old at the time, last year, when I decided to go into all of this. And I needed him to understand the fundamentals and the basics of farming, that farming is one of the ventures that you can get into with as little capital to begin with, as well, with a small amount of money that you can steadily grow if you are committed to it. Now, what I mean by that is that I took my son and I said, look, I'm giving you this shade net. In this shade net, we just have a shovel. We are going to get a hose. We are going to get a pick, and we are going to get the planks to measure out the rows. I've actually got the pictures that I'll upload to show you the process that I went through with him, and then the actual planting. Now, the reason I did that was because I wanted him to have the same appreciation as I did, because I got to watch my father steadily grow the farm over the years. So I'm very knowledgeable in terms of the stages of farming that you need to go through, and have also, you know, cultivate the patience factor within yourself to understand that it's not an overnight affair, that you gradually grow and you can become extremely big as long as you're diligent to that growth process. So by doing that, we started this with 150 being the seed variety. We chose Rampart, and not for any particular reason, because when you do rape, which is what we had chosen to do, you can go with the Green Giant, you can go with the XS. There's lots of varieties, but for me, I had read up on the Rampart and I was confident that this is the one that will suit the soil, the water, the type of yields that I was looking to bring forward. So we went into it. We set up the shade net. We had one worker, myself, my son, and we started the project. And the thing to note about this is everybody talks about drip irrigation, this, that. Look, that works, but definitely the basics work too, because before we were doing this whole thing with rain. So if you're now using a hose, you're one step up from even just the rain. So I needed my son to see that this is how we can grow the project from first initially starting with nothing, planting, making sure that we water the rape early morning. A lot of people complain in the winter that it's not a good time to grow rape. That's not necessarily true. It's just a little more of a difficult time because you will have to get up at early hours of the morning to spray the actual rape to stop the frost from falling on the leaves. You need to water the rape early hours of the morning before the frost hits. And when I say before the frost hits, I'm just basically terming the fact when the sun comes out and hits the leaves and there's frost on it, that's when you get those yellow streaks and the burning of the leaf. But if you want to ensure that doesn't happen, you have to wake up before the break of dawn, ensure that you've watered them. Again, ensure that you water them the night before, because during the process of the night, there's not a lot of evaporation, so the water really gets to go down to the roots. So all those little lessons that he needed to learn were being taught to him throughout this process, because I've gone through it before and I understand that you can start your project with a minimal amount. And so after 3 months of us doing this, and then him, successfully being able to pick the leaves, because let's note that with leafy vegetables, the main thing is that the leaves start off at about maybe 3 or 4, then as the plant is growing, you progress and get more and more leaves. We were using manure, so I did not buy fertilizer. So the ammonium nitrate, the whole compound seed business, I was not using that. We were using chicken manure, and I was replenishing the different fields that we were using every week. As we pick, I would ensure that the next week we put the manure down, and then we make sure that we use the pesticides. And I was using neem oil. Neem oil is an excellent deterrent, a natural deterrent for all these insects. Most of them are, if you use neem oil or soapy water, most of them will move away from your produce. But the main thing is that it's your diligence and your will to succeed that supersede every other thing when we're dealing with farming. Because even if you look at the days of old, when people initiated their farming projects, they initiated them with next to nothing. You do note that a lot of Africans, as it were subsistence farmers through our family lines, but you were able to be taken to school, you were able to have a sort of level of a life. You're not starving. And I think the thing to glean from that is that with everything, as technology advances, as Mbali said, that now with technology coming in and you're using hydroponics, which is a soilless method of growing, which ensures that, the insects are less, you use less fertilizer. So it is a profitable way to farm. All these different avenues of farming, I encourage people to look into them and take an active interest, because you really can earn from them. So that story I was telling you, Nonto, was simply based on the fact that, look, we've successfully built this project from nothing. And I think when we upload the pictures and show people, then you'll really be able to see that from 150 US, we took that to about I think it was about 5,000 US that he made. We were doing about 1,000 bunches a week by the time that we were actually picking the leaves. So ended up with about 25 tons, but that was on half a hectare, because again, it is important for you to start off on a small scale. Farming is not about coming and going gung-ho with the big money, going gung-ho with wanting to do thousands of hectares. You should start with just that small bit and gradually, because it also gives you the opportunity to make mistakes and learn and improve your processes.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to do things.
Wow. Just one last question, Lindy and Bali. I mean, this is really inspirational. I mean, it's amazing what you have managed to achieve from a very small start to where you are today. What about the opportunities? Because you both work in different sectors. Lindy, you are in the livestock sector, and Bali from a horticulture perspective. What are the opportunities that exist within the value chain from both your sectors? Because I think most people are interested more in the primary agriculture aspects of it, but there's a lot of opportunities that also exist beyond just the primary aspect of production. So maybe you can share 2 minutes, Bali and Lindy, what are the opportunities across the value chain?
All right, so firstly, I can say in crop production, food is in demand. I cannot stress that enough. So right now, I know there's a shortage of spinach in the markets. Butternut sales have skyrocketed. So firstly, in primary agriculture, especially in vegetable farming, there are a lot of opportunities. The demand is quite great. If you're looking at more high value crops, the citrus, your macadamia nuts, your avocado, the export line is definitely a big avenue to pursue, especially if you're in South Africa, because we could take advantage of the 4 seasons that we have in the year, as opposed to our USA, Asian, and European counterparts. So exporting for high value crops, citrus, macadamia, avocado, and super fruits like blueberries, etc., is definitely an avenue. But along the value chain, I think if people have a knack for sales and marketing, approach farmers who are struggling with markets. You know, there are farmers who are very good at producing a good quality crop, but cannot sell the stuff because maybe they're not people, they don't like to be in front of people, they don't know how to present and talk. So if you can be an off-taker or a reseller, and that's another way to start. If you want to farm, but you don't have the capital, but you want to go into chicken production, buy from farmers who don't have market and supply to the individuals that sell on the corners of the street, or sell their chicken to a nearby Shisanyama, or whatever the case is. Find different clientele. So if you have that natural sales ability, I think be a business development person or a salesperson or a marketer, I think that's one to go. If for individuals who have studied biochemistry, soil science, etc., also there's the opportunity to provide those value adds to farmers. But most importantly, for companies that are in the seed space, you know, there's a lot of research and development that goes on into coming up with the right variety of seed, whether that's GMO, non-GMO, whether it's a hybrid seed, etc. The companies do research and development year on year, and I keep interacting with male agronomists, so it will be nice to have some female agronomists in our sector, you know, and agronomists also come up with fertilizing programs or growing programs for farmers, and these individuals are in need from many companies, and then there's a huge demand for extension officers, you know. People that just have a general understanding of how business runs that could help mentor and support farmers. Extension officers in great need. Quality control. Yeah, food inspection, anything to do with quality control, that's a big demand as well. There's a number of certification companies that are out there that are taking advantage, that are contacting farmers like myself and saying, hey, we want to assist you with the compliance in your global gap. And if you know how to go throughout that process, and if you can sell your service, whether you're as a consultant or start a business, I think that those are just some of the opportunities one could take advantage of. And if you also still want to play in the buying and selling, maybe open up a company and register to be a fresh produce agent at the produce markets, because the bigger fresh produce agents are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And because the smaller produce agents aren't really, stepping up to their game. So I think there's also a gap that could be seized in that space.
I think just to add to what Mbali was saying, I think on the beneficiation or value add of farm produce, you'll find that there are generally 3 types of value addition that you can do to vegetables, mainly crushing, grinding, drying. So if you have access to some capital, maybe, as she said, you can also incorporate with some farmers. Like, for example, I'll give tomatoes. There could be some farmers who are farming tomatoes, but they don't have the market. If those tomatoes rot, you'd rather be in a position to own a collard mill. You can take that and crush and paste those tomatoes into a tomato paste. You can dry them, provide dry tomatoes. So there's a lot of different options that I think you can explore from a value addition add for most farming produce. We as farmers, I think we're already entangled of so much of the nitty-gritty of the actual growing that very few of us actually then have time to extend into the next sort of avenue of value adding things. Just like, there are guys that I know that grow avocado. There is a big demand for avocado oil. Rape in itself has got a vegetable oil seed that we don't even produce here in Africa, despite the fact that we have such a large market in terms of rape is grown every year. So there's so many opportunities that are available to us that I think we just need to expand in terms of our vision just a little bit more, because like I said, these are not expensive things to do. Like I said, drying machinery or drying equipment is not expensive. I think you can get for herbs in general right now, I think the whole world is obsessed with herbs, aka COVID. So it is once again for us to be able, as women and all the men that may be watching the webinar, for us to actually engage in actually processing. I think Africa, as we all know, is behind in this, and there's really no reason, because like I've said, there's just only 3 processes that you're going to undergo for any value addition. So if you don't feel that farming is your thing, definitely you may be able to value add products from farmers. So there's still a lot of room for anyone to join this industry and expand.
Thank you for that, Lindy. Thank you very much, Mbali. We left it like 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes. So we're just going to pick a few questions from the chat box. But what we will do, this is just the beginning of our series. So as we go, so you need to make sure that you join us every week. Some of the questions we'll be able to address them on one of the webinars. But here someone says, thank you about your background, da-da-da-da. And now they're talking about the challenge we are facing is not getting contracted regular customers whom we can supply our products. What can we do about this issue? Your help is appreciated. So this one is more of, not getting enough, a big enough market for their cabbages, the cucumber, the okra, and they're also under drip irrigation. Mbali may have kind of covered it a little bit earlier on. So maybe in 1 minute, what can you advise this individual? Mbali or Lindy?
The challenge we're not facing getting, okay, so I think the problem is around markets, not getting customers. I think that firstly, I'd say diversify your markets. And they mentioned things like cabbage, okra, cucumber. First, I can say cabbage right now is, I actually had a client who asked me, do you know a cabbage farmer? So I think firstly, diversify your markets. Sell to wholesalers, greengrocers, retail if you can, sell to catering companies, sell to feeding schemes, contact funeral parlors, because think about it, and unfortunately, I'm sorry to use the word, the situation in COVID, the more deaths that are happening, whether it's COVID related or non-COVID related, in Black communities, you know, we want to come together and cook and so forth, but yeah, you still have to feed people during funerals. So funeral parlors have even taken on that value chain to say, we're in our funeral monthly premium, should a family member die, we will give out a grocery pack, you know. So speak to people like organizations like Clientele that are running also these funeral schemes, service providers, and ask to be a regular cabbage service provider. You know, I think it's about being explorative in different markets, and really trying to push all avenues. But at the end of the day, make sure that you have the quantity that you're able to supply every single day as well. And that's very important. So I think that's how you could mitigate the problem of not having enough customers. Diversify as much as you can, understand their business models at different times, and understand how much can come out in terms of tonnage from your farm to supply to all these different clients.
Yeah. Can I just add to what Mbali said there as well, which is that I do think it's also important for you to have a very large vendor network, because this is one of the things that helped me. More than anything else, the vendors are the ones that basically helped move my business forward. Because there are a lot of people who are involved in the resale of the produce, that are on the streets, that are on the actual designated marketplaces. Some people are just selling it in the tuck shops in their neighborhood, things like that. That is also a very big market that I exploited, and you know, in the end, sort of moved myself to the retail shops. But I still keep a number of customers that are the vendor base, because when the shops are not able to take my produce, or they, you know, feel that they've had enough supply for that week, you will always have the streets. So I'm a big fan of the streets, because, you know, this is where I've made, you know, some really good money.
Thank you both, Lindy and Bali. It seems like we have run out of time. We have lots of questions that are coming from the floor, and maybe just a few seconds from each one of you. I know you did mention that you started off with your own capital, and for some people, they may not have that capital to start off with, and they'll be looking for money from somewhere else. But what's your advice if maybe you don't have your own capital, let alone family that can loan you that 10,000 Rand, or a friend that's loaded with that much money? What's your advice? What are other alternatives to getting capital to start off with? And then over to you, Nonto.
I think my advice for starting small, I think for getting capital, is to start where you are. Because the truth about capital is that you're never going to have enough, and you're never going to be able to access all the money you need for whatever you need to do. You need to be able to establish your business from small and put money aside. So if you are growing that one bed of cabbage, grow that one bed of cabbage and sell. Grow the next 2, 3, 4. From there, you get enough money put aside to go rent a farm. It has to be a gradual footing. There are also government programs. They are difficult to access, like Mbali did say, but there are government programs that you can go and try and sign up for, particularly for women. I think too, another thing to look seriously into is the issue of working in a sort of collaboration with other people. Because, you know, through selling other people's produce, or being a middleman for produce, or by you actively growing a small amount of something and teaming up with somebody else so that you have a continuous supply to a store. Because the reason you lose a contract is because you're not able to be consistent. As a small farmer, you're not able to be consistent week in, week out. But if you find a number of people for you to get together and be able to supply that chain week in, week out, you then have a steady supply of money that you can then use to push forward more projects. So really, I do not have the answer to say where do you get the capital, except to say it is a gradual process. It is a saving process, which is why they say that patience is a big thing for farmers. You need to have that steady mindset of growing things, growing your produce and growing your money.
Agreed. I wouldn't add anything from what Lindy has said.
Thank you so much, ladies. This has just been amazing. The time has been short, but it's really been a great session. I have just posted a link on the chat box. If everybody could please just click there, literally it will take you 1 minute. It's only just 3 questions, SurveyMonkey, for you just to evaluate the session today. It's just 3 sessions. It will actually take you less than a minute as you do it. So as we are wrapping up, please go ahead and do that. We'd really love your feedback. But thank you, ladies. And in just 30 seconds, Mbali, and Lindy, what would you say, how would you define success in agribusiness? Is it about having this huge piece of land? Is it this, lots of money in the bank? How would you define success in agribusiness, particularly as a woman?
Yeah, you asked me this sometime, Nonto. I think we spoke about it last week. And I said, you know what, success for me in the agricultural landscape is, I think if you know that you're doing the best that you can on a daily basis, when you go back home and you go back to sleep, and you know that your employees are satisfied in their roles, you've paid them, you're not owing anybody, your customers are happy with the quality of products that you're delivering, and you're obviously making an impact in your immediate community, and your family is happy, that is success. It's not about the size of land, how much money you're making. You determine what makes you happy. But I think just in how difficult it is to not only run a business, but to be a farmer. If at the end of the day, you could still say, yes, I have a business, I have a product that I can sell, I am sending out invoices, I am generating money, I am paying my employees, my suppliers at the end of the day, and myself at the end of the day, you're successful. And if you could be doing that consistently for about 3 years, just even being in the game for 3 years, for me, it's just a successful story, because not everybody can be a farmer. It can test your limits in many ways that you'd never thought of. And just to be around and hanging in there and persevering. And I think that's what success is for me. And that's how I base my success in the industry.
Thank you. And over to you, Lindy.
Well, I think that for me, success is just the ability to just be able to continue, because so many times in this particular sector, it's extremely difficult, because you have natural disasters that come about that can wipe out your entire field. We've seen people lose a lot of money in one season. So for me, success in farming is really your ability to just keep coming back and being determined to continue from where you were or take it to the next level. Just to keep going is really the success in farming. If you can keep going, like Mbali said, for 2-3 years on course, and the thing is, as you keep going, it does get easier. A lot of things that you learn along the way, the experiences really do amount to something in farming, because there's stuff that you learn that will take you a long way further on that you couldn't have learned without actually experiencing it. So if you can get yourself up to move forward from any natural disaster or any loss, or just from, making a huge loss, I think that you're a successful farmer.
Thank you so much for that. And please, once again, please just fill in that survey. It's literally 1 minute. But thank you for your time. And I'll cross over to Precious just to say thank you to everyone. But before we do that, our next webinar is on the 8th of March. And 8th of March is Women's Day. So we have something really great on the 8th of March. And then thereafter, every Wednesday till the end of March, we will be having amazing webinars. So please, you need to register for each and every one of them. And we hope you will all be able to join us. But thank you so much, everybody. And we'll cross over to Precious.
Mine is just to extend thank you to our presenters and our wonderful audience. You have been very engaging. Unfortunately, we're not able to answer all your amazing questions. We hope we can package those questions into a platform where we have a Q&A session or something. But really, we are grateful for you having joining us. We were a little bit worried about the numbers. I mean, wow, it was well attended and we are so grateful. As Nonto already mentioned, we look forward to hosting you in our next webinar sessions, similar where we are going to be having experts in this field who are going to be sharing their experiences on the ground. Without further ado, I know we've already taken 7 minutes of your time. We thank you once again, and we look forward to hosting you again in our next session. You will be getting the invitation. So watch out for our website, Facebook, Twitter, and other channels. Thank you so much to both you, Lindy, and Bali. We're giving you virtual presents from our side.
Thank you so much. So it's Accelerate Afrique and Solidarity Network. So that's where you will get all the details. But thank you, everyone. I think everyone can unmute and we can kind of clap hands and shout out for our presenters. Thank you so much.
Yay.
Well done.
Awesome.
Bye,
Well done, ladies.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Great info.
Well done.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.